If you're looking for a cute and unique way to send Christmas cards this year, we have the bundle for you. One thing I want to mention, just for starters, is we actually have 3 versions of the card base. The version I'm showing you here is just the non-scored version. The one that you're going to have in your main folder is going to have a few perforated lines. And then we've also included versions with solid score lines for those of you that have the Cricut Maker. So if you are simply loading the ones from the root folder, you're going to have a few score lines. In my case, I did cut this out with the Maker and it looks great, but I wanted to show you if you are using the one without any score marks or solid score marks, all you have to do is just fold it in half. Okay, and then that way you don't have to worry about having any little score marks anywhere. And if you have a score tool, of course you can use your little score tool, but just like you did in grade school, just kind of fold it onto itself, make sure that it's nice and lined up, and just press it down. And if you have the score marks already, then obviously you just want to fold it in half using the score marks. If you have a little bone folder, that will help too, but it's not really necessary. Just kind of do it with your fingernail. And there we go. Okay, so there's our card base. These little slits here are what we're going to use to insert our little pop-up mechanism. And I am going to have my texture side facing out. So this is going to be the front of my card. We're going to hide these slits with a few panels in just a moment here. We're going to do that last. So the best thing to do to ensure that you get everything nice and lined up is to keep both of your pieces kind of next to each other like that, as close as you can. And, oops, we can begin. In my case, I'm going to be taking the white glitter pieces and putting those down first. So I'm going to start with, it doesn't matter, start with the left side or the right side. I'm going to start with the left side here and get my glue on this piece here. This is the first layer. And you can see this little area here. That is going to go over just before where his little hand or glove or mitten begins. So get that lined up and then follow the rest of the little shadow of the red portion and just get that nice and lined up. Make sure that the piece that we're laying down meets in the center nicely. Okay, just like that. And then we can take the left side of his face. Now you know it's the left side because it's round. You can see his little cheek there. And on this side, it's straight. And then we've got the eyeball or the eye and then the little cutout on top for his eyebrows. So let's get that in place. Just a little bit of glue will do. You don't need to overdo it. And just line it up with the cutout of the eye on the layer below it. Make sure that you're matching it up with the contour of the nose. And just do your best to get that centered. Okay, then we have his little mustache. And we can get that placed. Just a few little dots of glue. Don't need to overdo it. And when placing the little mustache, make sure that you are following the contour of his nose. It kind of should fit like a little puzzle piece, like that. Okay, just kind of scooch that in just a little bit. All right, so there you can see it's a nice little puzzle piece there. Okay, now before I go any lower, I'm going to bring this back here and get the red part nice and aligned, and I'm just going to do the other side of his face just to make sure that I'm keeping everything lined up nicely and keeping everything symmetrical. Okay, so let me kind of move it this way. Probably be a little bit easier to work with it so that this side is kind of lined up. And just get that. I'm looking over here first just to make sure that I've got that part aligned correctly, and then I'm going to shift my gaze over to the center where the two pieces meet to make sure that I've got it aligned correctly there as well. And I do, so I can pick it up and Just kind of work it in my hand now. Okay. And I think once we get this piece in, the rest of it should kind of fall into place. Just as long as we have those main sections lined up, I think we're going to be okay. Okay, so now we have his face. Remember, the round part of this piece, his little cheek, needs to go on the right-hand side. And then once you kind of have this somewhat in place, maybe just pop it down and just make sure that it's nice and symmetrical. And it is, so that's good. Let's grab the other side of his mustache. Probably would have a mustache too if I was in the North Pole. And just match that up, kind of like a little puzzle piece there. Should just kind of fit right in there. Now if you're using white glitter, just remember that sometimes when you glue cardstock to glitter, it may take a few extra seconds for it to set, so don't accidentally bump it and move it. Okay, so there we go. Everything's lining up nicely. I'm going to put his little pom-pom on his hat. And this is a symmetrical piece, so it should fit pretty much any way you place it. Okay, there we go. So far, so good. That looks good. And let's get his shoes on. He needs some shoes. And then we'll work our way up to the bottom of his little Santa suit and his buckle. There we go. We got one boot. I get the other boot. There we go. Okay, and at this point, you can get the bottom part of his little outfit all put together here. He's looking pretty sharp so far. Now, this part here, you want to kind of get a visual. Just maybe place these down first before you glue, so you can see how it's going to go. Because even just the slightest little change in the angle on either of these pieces can make it look like it's not centered. Okay, so let's put down one side first, and let's just get that all in place, and then we can use that as a guide to make any necessary adjustments should we maybe be off by a hair, just to make sure that it's nice and centered. So I'm focusing my gaze here on the right-hand side, that little bump right there, just above his little glove there, and also focusing on the contour here of this white piece that creates the shape of his thumb, making sure that that kind of hugs that curve naturally, and then it should end up right there. And that's how we know that we've got that nice and aligned. Okay, just like that. And now I can put glue on this other piece. The actual belt, we'll put that on last once we get these two pieces aligned nicely. Okay, so this is where you kind of want to make sure that the red part of Santa is all nice and aligned. And I'm being very careful with this. You probably don't need to spend this much time on it, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand that, you know, there's not markers all over this to help you with the placement, so you got to kind of visualize it. And see, now that looks nice and aligned, which is what we want. Now, you'll have two of these pieces. One has a little bit of a curve here, and that's going to go on this side where his hand is down, the one that's not waving. And you can see that that fits on there like a nice little puzzle piece. So I'm gonna just put some glue on this and pop it right in there like a little puzzle. And push that down. And that should match up nicely in the center. And it does. And other side. Just gonna blot that a little bit. And another little puzzle piece here. Make sure it's nice and centered. And get that excess glue off of there. There we go. Okay, so you can see here, we've got a nice symmetrical Santa. And to finish it off, we'll grab the little gold piece from his belt buckle and get those pieces in place. And that will also kind of fit like a little puzzle piece right there. And I need to kind of nudge that a little bit. It's not completely centered. There we go, that's better. Okay, other side, and our Santa is complete. So keep in mind that when you're working on this card, as far as the mechanism portion, which we're about to get into here in a moment, this is really the only difference, is paper piecing the little character that we have featured on the card. Everything else goes together pretty much the same way. So there's our cute little Santa. Okay, and so all that's left to do is just kind of prepare our Santa by gluing him to this white piece here. Okay, and we want to make sure that we get that nice and aligned. So let's get our glue on the back of this entire red piece and get him anchored down to our little pop-up mechanism. It's a very simple sort of pop-up. And I'm looking at just below the little pom-pom here where that little hole's cut out, and then kind of following the rest of it with my eyes, making sure that it's nice and centered and as close to the center as you can without going over. Okay, and let's take a look at the other side here, and you can see that matches up nicely. So let's get our glue on the back of our Santa. This would be a really cute card to give to a child too. Maybe throw a gift card in there, you know, and I'm sure that they would love a card like this. Okay, so I'm just getting that lined up. I'm using the little cutout of the hand to kind of guide me and get that nice and aligned. Okay, so there's our pop-up mechanism. When it's closed, it'll be like that. When it opens up, it will come together and you'll have your little Santa there. Okay, so here is the little snowbank or little snowdrift or whatever you want to call it, where our little caption is going to go. And we're going to cut that out. Okay, and there's actually some little place markers on here that your machine's going to cut out to help you with the placement of the caption so that you can make them consistent and get them nice and centered. And this is a nice red glitter that I have here, but I'm not gluing glitter on glitter, just glitter on cardstock, and it's holding nicely for me. So we'll get our other caption on there. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we've got our caption, we've got our Santa. We can go ahead and just get the rest of these little tiny pieces in place here. So we can put our little berries onto our holly leaves. And they're pretty much all symmetrical, so it shouldn't really matter how you get them on there. Just make sure you get them nice and centered. And these are going to go on this piece here. There's actually some little score marks here to help you with the alignments. So the little tips of the bottom of the holly leaves are going to go right about there, going at that angle. And I think we're going to put those on last. Okay, and just real quick, I may as well just go over the little band here. As you can see on one side, we've got a little score mark, a little tab, I should say. On this side here, we've got a little score mark, so we can fold it, and we're simply going to just take a little bit of glue and pop it right on that tab. And you can actually do this flat. Just push that little that back part right onto the little tab there. Get it nice and aligned. And then let's take our little berries and glue them to our holly. And then we can take the entire piece here and glue it to our band. It's gonna keep our card nice and closed so that it can have a safe trip to wherever its destination may be, and then kind of makes it a little more interactive. Not that it needs to be even more interactive because it's already a pop-up card, but it does add a nice touch. Okay, so get that nice and aligned, and then flatten that out. Okay, there's a little band. It's going to go over the card. Okay, so at this point we can go ahead and assemble the actual pop-up mechanism, which is very simple. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our little interior panels in. And what you want to do is when you get this aligned, this slit, these two slits here, you want them to be in front of this little section here, and the end of that should kind of butt up right along the edge of where it starts to curve into this scallop shape. And then also, when you do that, you should notice that this slit matches up with this slit precisely and exactly. Okay, if it's just a hair off, it really shouldn't make a difference, but do your best to make sure that you do get that aligned as precisely as possible. You do not want to obstruct the little slits there. And if you take a look and notice, the border here is less than the border here. This border around here is going to be nice and even all the way around, and here it's going to be a little bit less. Okay, so that's how you want to glue that down. So let's do that. Let's get this piece down, and I'm going to go easy on the glue here, but make sure that when you're putting glue on this that you're getting some glue out to the very edges so that the edge does not peel up. And then of course maybe don't put too much glue near the little slit so that we don't get any glue on top of it and potentially obstruct it. Okay, so again, using that top slit, get that lined up so that it's just right up to the little corner where it starts to change direction, and kind of nudge it a little bit. And then also just make sure that that other slit is not being obstructed as well. So I kind of have to get my head out of here so you're not seeing just my head here, and it's making it a little more difficult for me, but I think I got it here. There we go. And that looks good. So just push that down, get it nice and aligned. And as you can see, we've got a pretty nice even border here, nice even border going all the way around. And the slits are, well, they're accessible. So that was a pretty good job there. And again, if it's a tad off, it's still gonna work because it's just one thickness of paper that's going through those slits. So the same thing's gonna apply to this side here, okay? Just make sure that the end of this slit kind of butts up right in that little corner and that you're not obstructing the other slit. Okay, just like that. And you can kind of look at this one here just to make sure that you've got it nice and straight. And you gotta kind of work a little quick on this here because I think I need to get a humidifier in here because this glue has been drying real quick lately. And I think it's just because of the lack of humidity in the air here in the winter. Okay, and again, just make sure that you get that glue out to the edges here so that it doesn't peel up. And I'm gonna kind of do it like this, I think. Get that part lined up nicely first. And just make sure that that other slit is not being obstructed. Take a look at it, just glance at it, make sure it's nice and even. It looks pretty darn good to me. I'm just gonna press it down. And let me see if I can find my brayer. I got this handy dandy little brayer to add a little extra pressure in some of these areas. There we go. Okay, so really pretty interior. And what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take our little Santa, and you can see here the tabs are facing forward. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna feed the tabs in through the little slits, just like that. Okay, so you can see how he pops up already. I haven't even glued it down yet, but what we're going to do is close the card up and just fold these tabs over and just put a little bit of glue on the tab there. You want to fold it forward. You don't want to fold it back. So fold it forward towards you and just hold that down for just a moment. Okay, make sure that it's nice and flat there. Mine isn't, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit by just using a scrap piece of paper, putting a little bit of glue on there, and just kind of painting it underneath that little area where maybe I just didn't get enough glue, and hold that down just for a sec. There we go. And there's Mr. Santa, Mr. Jolly Old Santa. And we'll put glue on the other tab here. I'm just going to spread that out all the way and then fold it towards you again, towards the center of the card. Give that a press. Okay, and voila, there is our Mr. Santa. And you know what? Let's just enjoy this moment for a second, and let's put our little holly leaves on here. So you can see on the little panel here, there's two little identifiers here, and those two identifiers are where you're going to place the tips of these two sections of your little holly leaves. Okay, so they're going to be coming out this way. So let's just get those in place. It's a very, very simple card. Just a little bit of paper piecing, and then just a tiny little bit of patience when it comes to the mechanism, but it's a very simple mechanism. You know that a lot of you have done some of our Christmas ones, the Christmas pop-ups, and those have some really tiny pieces, and they work great, but these are gonna go a lot easier. Okay, so now this one here, get your glue on there. And then the caption goes down just like Santa. I'm just going to stick it through the slots, glue it down, and bam. And again, we've got the little markers there for the bottom little points of our little holly leaf. Okay, and bam. So you can see that, you know, it's nice and symmetrical, really pretty. Okay, and you grab a nice Christmas pattern here that complements the actual design, and you're good to go. So again, just like we did the first time, we've already glued our caption onto this piece. I've inked the little snow mound with a nice turquoise. We're going to take this tab and slide it through the front like that. And when you glue this down, also just make sure that the crease here is in the center of the card. Okay, this piece is a little bit bigger, so we just want to make sure that we get that nice and aligned. And then go ahead and close it up, make sure it closes, which it should, and then fold these tabs down, and then we can get our glue on these tabs to glue them down. And then of course, we're not going to leave these tabs just hanging there. We are going to cover them up with a nice little panel to finish off the card and hide the little tabs. And our card will be pretty much complete and ready for an envelope, which we'll show you here in just a moment. Okay, so there we go. There's one tab. Let's flip that over and get a little bit of glue on this guy here. I'm going to run my finger across that, thin it out, and press it down. And just hold that for a sec. And there we go. So now when we open it up, we get Santa and ho, ho, ho. And it closes up nicely. So let's finish this off by just gluing the little stripe patterns on the front and the back. Just grab your glue. I think this is like I don't want to say this is like 100-pound cardstock. It's definitely thicker than AC, and it's got a little bit of glitter on it, and that's probably why. So let me pop that on the back just in case I put too much glue on there. And just get that nice and centered on the card. Nice and vertically aligned. Should have a nice even border going all the way around it. If you have a little brayer, well, it's kind of bulky in the middle, so I don't know if a brayer is a good idea. It might kind of crease things, but just give that a press. Make sure that it's holding all the way around. There we go. That looks nice. And we'll do the same thing on the front, which you can go ahead and do. And then, of course, you've got your little band. It's going to go around the card and kind of hold that in place. Okay, and when you take the band off, you can take this. I'm going to glue that on in just a moment. And there is your pop-up card. Very simple. And of course, we've got our envelope. So let's take a look at that. Okay, and we have an envelope here, obviously. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and glue it to the inside of the top flap. And to do that, I think the best thing to do would be to apply the glue to this part here, because we may not be completely sure where to put the glue on the other piece, and we may end up with too much glue in a place where we don't want glue. Okay, so just get your glue on there, maybe a little dot here towards the inside of those holly leaves. And then what I would do is kind of wedge this into where the score line is, and make sure that it's aligned to the left and to the right, so it's nice and centered. And then just go ahead and press it down into place, and then fold it down like so. And just press it down, and there you go. Got a beautiful envelope. And we can glue our little berries in place. Okay, so don't forget to put your little holly, or the berry on there, I should say. And once we have that in place, all we need to do is close it up like so. So take a look at where your glue is going to go. And I would go very delicate on the glue and maybe just do some dots. You don't need a lot. And just close it up and just press. And there is your envelope. I'm going to take this and just pop it underneath my mat so that it sits flat for a little while. I've learned to not use a lot of glue on my envelopes because sometimes they look unsightly. And okay, so I've got the front of the card on there, and again, because it's a little bulky, because of the pop-up mechanism, if for some reason you have an issue with the a little section here or there not sticking, just go ahead and paint a little bit of glue into those areas, and then just press, in those specific little areas where you just need a little extra loving, and your card is ready to go. So I think it's really cool, and it's something different, very classic, but also cute, perfect for all ages, and I can't wait to see your version. So if you do make one of these, please take a moment to visit us on Facebook, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group in your little search up at the top, and share your creation with us. And if you loved hanging out with me and crafting with me, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and let us know that we're doing a good job. So hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I look forward to crafting with you again.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.